In 1600s Japan, deep within a mountain forest, a young warrior named Hiroshi stood before his master with trembling hands. The morning air was cold, the world silent, as if nature itself waited for the answer to a question that would decide Hiroshi's destiny. His master asked, "If you faced 10 enemies with your sword, how many could you kill?" With youthful confidence, Hiroshi replied, "All 10, but the master shook his head. "Wrong, you will kill none, because the moment you think of killing 10, you are already defeated by the first." In that instant, Hiroshi felt something crack inside him. Years of training, thousands of cuts and stances, all shattered by a single truth: the enemy is never out there, it's always in the mind. This is the secret the ancient samurai protected, the forbidden technique that creates an unshakable warrior, not through strength or speed, but through presence. And today, you will discover exactly how Hiroshi learned it. Before we begin, take a moment to breathe, to arrive fully where you are. Then, if you haven't already, subscribe to the channel. This is where we explore samurai wisdom, Zen philosophy, and the quiet power that awakens mastery from within. If you're ready, let's step into the story. The lesson begins now. Hiroshi had trained in the Akimoto dojo since he was 12. Now 17, he could cut through bamboo with flawless precision, strike wooden targets faster than the eye could follow, and perform every kata with the ease of breathing. Other students admired his form, his discipline, his promise, but beneath the polished surface, Hiroshi carried a quiet storm the others could not see, a storm made of fear. Fear of being struck, fear of being wrong, fear of being exposed as not enough. Each day, Hiroshi woke before sunrise, convinced that one more hour of training would finally silence the trembling in his hands. Yet even after thousands of repetitions, his fear only grew stronger. The closer he came to adulthood, the more he sensed the world waiting to judge him. And now, his 18th birthday was only months away, the age when every student took the final examination that determined whether they would become samurai or fail forever. What terrified him most was not the blade itself, but the thought that the whispers around the dojo might be true. His form is perfect, but his spirit is weak. He thinks too much. He will never pass the test. Hiroshi pretended not to hear, but every word carved itself into his mind like fresh wounds. Each swing of the sword became heavier, each breath more shallow. He believed he was hiding his fear, but fear has a way of revealing itself. The master saw it clearly, and soon, Hiroshi would be forced to face the truth he had been running from. The breaking point arrived one quiet afternoon during sparring. Hiroshi stood face to face with another student, wooden swords raised, the air thick with anticipation. On the surface, it was nothing more than a practice match, a daily routine, but inside Hiroshi, panic swelled like a rising tide. His opponent stepped forward, calm and certain. Hiroshi stepped back, heart racing, breath trapped somewhere between his chest and throat. The match began, and it ended almost instantly. One strike, a clean, sharp blow to Hiroshi's arm, sent his sword flying across the floor. The dojo fell silent, his opponent bowed respectfully, but Hiroshi could not lift his head. The strike had done no physical harm, yet it felt as though something deep inside him had shattered. The whispers returned, this time louder, echoing from the walls. He panics. He hesitates. He is not ready. That evening, long after the others had left, Hiroshi approached Master Akimoto, who sat in meditation beneath the shrine's dim lantern light. Hiroshi knelt, hands shaking, and asked the question that had haunted him for years. "Master, when will I be ready for the final examination?" The old man opened his eyes that held lifetimes of battle, wisdom, and quiet sorrow. His voice was calm, almost gentle. "You are technically ready," he said. Hiroshi blinked in confusion. "Then why will you not allow me to take the test?" Master Akimoto stood, turned to face him fully, and spoke words that pierced deeper than any blade. "Because technique alone is meaningless. Your body is here, but your mind is everywhere. You fear the future, you relive the past, and so you are absent from the only place life exists, this moment." Then, with sudden firmness, he ordered, "Stand, pick up your sword." Hiroshi obeyed, though his hands trembled. The master remained unarmed. "Strike me," he said. Hiroshi froze. Fear swallowed him whole. I can't," he whispered. "Why not?" "Because you are my master. It would be disrespectful." Master Akimoto leaned closer. voice low and fierce. No, you lie to yourself. You are not guided by respect, you are guided by fear. You do not fear the strike, you fear what comes after it. At that moment, Hiroshi felt the truth. He had not lost the sparring match because he was weak. He had lost because his mind was split into 1,000 pieces. And the master added one final blow. Until you learn to be present, you will never become samurai. You will be a corpse with good technique. Those words followed Hiroshi into the night like shadows he could not outrun. The turning point had arrived. If he wanted to survive his destiny, something inside him would have to die first. The next morning, Hiroshi awoke determined to train harder than ever. He imagined long drills, intense sparring, perhaps new techniques that would finally unlock confidence. But when he arrived at the dojo courtyard, he found the students standing silently in a row, each holding a broom. Master Akimoto faced them with a calm expression and announced, "Today, we do no sword practice. Today, we clean." Hiroshi stared at the broom in disbelief. Sweep the floor? On a day when every second felt like a countdown to failure? As he dragged the broom across the wooden boards, frustration simmered inside him. The test was looming, his fear was growing, and this mundane work, felt like madness. His sweeping became mechanical, impatient, sloppy. His mind drifted into anxious planning. Which stance needed improvement? Which strike needed correction? How much time remained before the exam would be announced? But as Hiroshi moved across the hall, something pulled his attention to the far corner of the room, where Master Akimoto also swept the floor. The sight stopped Hiroshi mid-step. The master's movements were smooth, deliberate, and silent. Each stroke of the broom seemed complete, as if nothing else in the world existed. He was not cleaning a floor, he was inhabiting the moment. Every gesture was full, precise, unhurried. It looked almost like sword practice, but stripped of all tension, stripped of all thought. Hiroshi felt shame flood through him. His own broom scraped awkwardly, driven by impatience and fear. Yet the master's broom glided with grace, driven by presence. At that moment, Hiroshi realized something that unsettled him deeply, even in a task as simple as sweeping. His mind was somewhere else. When the cleaning ended, Master Akimoto motioned Hiroshi to follow him into a small meditation room behind the dojo. On the wall hung a single scroll painted with bold calligraphy. The master gestured toward it. "Read." Hiroshi knelt and whispered aloud. "Shoshin, beginner's mind." Master Akimoto settled onto the floor and asked, "Do you know what this means?" Hiroshi hesitated. To start fresh? To approach learning with humility? The master shook his head. "Deeper. When a beginner picks up a sword for the first time, the mind is empty. No fear, no expectation, no thought about victory or failure. There is only the moment, the grip, the stance, the breath. But you, Hiroshi, do not live in the moment. You sweep while thinking of swords. You train swords while thinking of the test. Your body does one thing while your mind does 10. The words landed like stones. Hiroshi lowered his gaze. He knew it was true. Master Akimoto continued, "Softer now. Presence is the true weapon of the warrior. The sword is only an extension of it. When you fragment your mind, your strength dies. When you return to this moment, nothing can harm you." For the first time, Hiroshi understood why he had failed, not in skill, but in spirit. He bowed deeply, feeling the weight of old habits breaking apart inside him. That night, before sleep, he whispered to himself, "Begin again. Begin here." The path to becoming samurai was no longer about sharpening steel. It was about sharpening awareness. And Hiroshi knew this was only the beginning. Hiroshi began his new training the next morning, and it was unlike anything he had imagined. There were no advanced sword forms, no drills to push his body to the edge, no battles to test his strength. Instead, Master Akimoto gave him a single instruction: whatever you are doing, do only that. When sweeping the floor, Hiroshi was to sweep. When eating, he was to eat. When walking, he was to walk. The entire dojo carried on with its usual routine. But Hiroshi's world became very small, reduced to simple actions that demanded his full attention. The first week felt like punishment. Every movement seemed painfully slow, unnatural, almost absurd. While others practiced complex sword techniques, Hiroshi found himself lost in the rhythm of footsteps, the sound of rice against teeth, the sensation of breath entering and leaving his body. His mind rebelled constantly. Thoughts tangled and shouted inside him, "You are wasting time. You are falling behind. You will fail the test." He felt trapped inside his own skull, helpless against the noise. But on the 8th day, something shifted. During morning meditation, for just a heartbeat, the torrent of thoughts paused. Hiroshi sat in silence, complete, absolute silence, and heard the wind outside against the bamboo walls. The steady creak of wood, the distant footsteps of a student passing. It lasted only a moment. Then thought rushed back in. Still, that moment changed everything. Hiroshi had glimpsed what presence felt like. And now that he knew it was real, he wanted more. In the second week, Hiroshi committed himself entirely. When he swept the dojo floors, he felt the broom handle warm beneath his palms, heard the bristles brushing along the wood, noticed grains of dust sliding into corners of light. When he ate, he tasted every grain of rice, every sip of tea. When he walked across the courtyard, he felt the ground beneath his feet, the air on his skin. The world, once dull and anxious, began to glow with texture and sound. The third week brought sparring, a true test. Facing another student, Hiroshi felt familiar fear creeping in. But instead of fighting it, he acknowledged it, then returned to the moment at hand. Breath, stance, blade. His opponent struck fast, but Hiroshi responded before thought could interfere. His body moved without hesitation, sidestep, deflect, counter, as though the fight flowed through him instead of from him. Nothing forced, nothing planned, just pure response. When the match ended, Hiroshi's opponent bowed and whispered, "You've changed." Hiroshi bowed back, saying nothing, but inside, he knew the shift was real. Presence was no longer something he chased, it was something he had begun to inhabit. By the end of 30 days, Hiroshi realized he was no longer training to become samurai. He was training to become present, and that was something far more powerful. The morning of the final examination arrived cloaked in silence. The dojo courtyard, usually filled with the sounds of training, stood still beneath the pale gold of dawn. Hiroshi stepped into the center of the grounds. Dressed in simple robes, holding a wooden sword, his breath was steady, his mind clear. Around him, fellow students gathered to watch, their faces a mixture of curiosity and disbelief. Some had doubted him for years. Today, they would witness the truth. Master Akamoto entered the courtyard opposite Hiroshi, but he did not carry a wooden sword. In his hands rested a real katana, a gleaming blade that whispered of life and death. The tradition was strict. The student fought with wood, the master fought with steel. The difference in weapons reflected the difference in mastery. If the master chose, one strike would end Hiroshi's life. Yet Hiroshi felt no fear, only attentive stillness. The test did not begin with a shout or sign. It began with movement, a sudden flash of silver as Master Akamoto lunged with a precise strike aimed at Hiroshi's shoulder. Instinct rose, but thought did not. Hiroshi stepped aside, feeling the wind of the blade brush past his ear. His wooden sword lifted to deflect, not as reaction but as presence. The courtyard stirred with murmurs. A second strike followed, faster, sharper, layered with intention. Hiroshi did not anticipate or plan. He allowed the moment to unfold. His feet grounded, his muscles relaxed, his senses wide open. The clash of wood against steel rang through the courtyard like a bell announcing awakening. Hiroshi flowed, responding without hesitation, without calculation, without fear. For long minutes, the two circled and clashed, master and student entwined in a rhythm beyond technique. Hiroshi moved as though the world were happening in slow motion. Each breath guided him, each heartbeat steadied him, each moment became the only moment that existed. Then, suddenly, Master Akamoto shifted. His stance opened wide, revealing a perfect gap, an invitation. Every other student in the courtyard saw it as clearly as Hiroshi did. The opening could lead to victory. Hiroshi could strike, he could end the match, he could prove himself. But he didn't move. Instead, he stood still, present, aware. Something deep inside him understood the truth. The opening was a trap. A test within a test. To attack would mean acting from ambition, not presence. To stay centered meant mastery. Master Akamoto held the pose for a moment longer. Eyes locked with Hiroshi's, then he lowered his katana, stepped back, and bowed. "Enough," he said, voice soft but resonant. "You have passed." The courtyard erupted in applause, loud, stunned, reverent, but Hiroshi did not smile. Not out of pride, and not out of restraint. He simply stood in the quiet of his own mind, breathing, feeling the world as it was, clear, open, alive. Later, in private, Master Akamoto spoke to him. 5 years ago, you wished to be the greatest swordsman. Today, you became something far more rare. You became present. And Hiroshi understood. The test had not been about proving strength. It had been about remembering truth. Hiroshi believed that passing the final test would mean the end of struggle. But in the days that followed, he discovered something unexpected, a feeling of incompleteness. His body felt lighter, his movements freer, his thoughts calmer, and yet, beneath it all, there was a quiet whisper telling him the path was not finished. Master Akamoto saw this in him without a word being spoken. One evening, as lantern light flickered against the walls of the dojo, the master called Hiroshi to his room. You have mastered the sword, Akamoto said, but now you must learn to master yourself. Hiroshi listened in silence as the master continued. For 1 year, you will leave this dojo. Travel north to Mount Kazuna. There, you will train with the Zen monks. Not in fighting, but in presence. The announcement struck Hiroshi's heart with both awe and fear. To leave the dojo meant stepping away from everything he had known, from the sword, from routine, from identity, but he bowed deeply and accepted. A true warrior did not cling to comfort. The journey to Mount Kazuna took several days. The air grew colder, the roads narrower, until finally the forest opened to reveal stone steps leading to a monastery perched among clouds. The monks greeted him with calm, clear eyes, their movements unhurried, their voices soft. The head monk, Master Renji, told Hiroshi to leave his sword at the gate. You will not need it here, he said. That simple instruction shook Hiroshi more than any duel. Without his sword, who was he? Training at the monastery was unlike anything Hiroshi had experienced. There were no opponents, no targets, no measures of progress, only silence, sitting, and attention. Hours each day were spent in zazen, seated meditation, where thoughts rose and passed like birds moving across the sky. Hiroshi battled restlessness, doubt, and the urge to escape. His legs ached, his back throbbed, his mind swarmed with memories and worries. Some days, it felt like he was falling apart from the inside out. But slowly, month by month, Hiroshi began to see the patterns behind his thoughts. He noticed how fear arrived, demanded attention, then faded when ignored. He saw how pride tried to shape stories about who he was and who he should become. He learned to sit with everything, the chaos, the tenderness, the boredom, the stillness, without resisting or reaching. One morning, as he walked through the monastery garden, Hiroshi realized he hadn't thought about swords or tests or praise for weeks. He was simply there, breathing in the cold mountain air, feeling gravel beneath his feet, hearing the distant hum of chanting from the hall. That moment, so ordinary on the surface, felt like an awakening. Presence was no longer something he practiced. It was something he lived. By the 9th month, Master Renji spoke to him. You have learned stillness in silence, he said. Now, you must learn stillness in chaos. The words hinted at a new trial, one that would not be fought on polished floors or quiet gardens. Something awaited Hiroshi beyond the monastery walls. And whatever it was, he felt ready in a way the old Hiroshi never could have imagined. The sword had taught him how to fight. The mountain was teaching him how to see. 3 seasons had passed on Mount Kazuna, and Hiroshi's training had settled into a rhythm of simplicity and silence. Then, one cold autumn morning, Master Renji summoned him to the meditation hall. The room was empty except for a small wooden table, on which lay a folded letter. Renji's expression was calm, but his voice carried a weight that Hiroshi had never heard before. A village 2 days from here is under threat. Bandits have been stealing food and silver. The villagers are afraid. Hiroshi bowed, expecting instructions to gather weapons or prepare a defensive plan. Instead, the monk looked into his eyes and said, You will go alone. Hiroshi's pulse quickened. Alone? Without a sword? Without armor? The idea felt impossible, but Master Renji continued, This is not a test of strength. It is a test of presence. If you meet fear, be with fear. If you meet danger, be with danger. Let the moment lead you. Nothing else. There was no room for refusal. Hiroshi bowed again, took the letter, and left the temple with the rising sun at his back. The journey to the village meandered through forests of crimson leaves and narrow river paths. Hiroshi walked in silent awareness, each step a meditation, each breath a companion. Old thoughts tried to rise, memories of battles lost, fears of death, images of what might happen, but with every step, he returned to the ground beneath his feet. He found comfort not in confidence, but in presence. At dusk on the 2nd day, Hiroshi arrived at the village. The people greeted him with hollow eyes and trembling hands. Walls and doors were cracked from forced entry. Fires burned low. Children hid behind their mothers. The village head spoke with despair. They come at dawn. 5 swordmen. Ruthless. We have nothing left to give. Please, help us. Hiroshi felt the fear in their voices. Clear as thunder. But within himself, there was only stillness. As dawn approached, the bandits appeared. 5 men dressed in tattered armor. Their leader standing tall with scars across his face and a heavy blade resting on his shoulder. The villagers retreated in terror. But Hiroshi stepped forward to meet them. He carried no weapon, no shield, only calm. The leader laughed. A monk playing warrior? He mocked. Leave, boy, we are not here to negotiate. Hiroshi did not leave. He stood as immovable as stone. His eyes did not challenge, but neither did they flee. The bandit chief hesitated. Something about the stillness unsettled him. He demanded Hiroshi state his purpose. Hiroshi answered softly, I am here to speak, not to fight. One of the bandits scoffed and rushed forward with his sword drawn. Steel flashed in the morning light. Villagers gasped, but Hiroshi didn't move, not an inch, not a breath out of place. His body remained open, exposed, vulnerable, and in the instant before the blade reached his skin, the bandit faltered, his sword shook, his hand froze. He stepped back in confusion. Why won't you defend yourself? He stammered. Hiroshi met his eyes with quiet attention. Because there is nothing to defend. Silence fell over the clearing. The bandits glanced at each other. Uncertain, the leader's expression shifted, anger fading into something deeper. A memory surfacing behind the scars. Pain, loss, regret. He lowered his blade. Who are you? A man who sees who you truly are. Hiroshi replied, not a criminal, not an enemy, only someone who has forgotten himself. The words pierced like truth, not like weapons. The leader's shoulders trembled. He knelt. The other bandits, stunned, did the same. Behind them, the villagers watched with astonishment as the men who once brought terror now bowed in silence. There was no battle, no victory. And yet, peace returned to the village. Because Hiroshi did not defeat the bandits. He dissolved the conflict. He saw them, not with judgment, but with presence, and presence transformed what violence could not. When Hiroshi returned to Mount Kazuna, the village safe and silent behind him, Master Renji was waiting at the temple gates. He did not smile, nor speak words of praise. Instead, he placed a hand on Hiroshi's shoulder and said, now you understand, presence is the true blade. Those simple words echoed through Hiroshi's heart more powerfully than any applause or triumph ever could. He knew, with a clarity that felt as vast as the mountain air, that the purpose of a warrior was not to conquer others, but to conquer illusion. As the seasons change, Hiroshi descended from the mountain and returned to Master Akamoto's dojo. The place looked the same, yet everything felt different. Students still trained, bamboo still rustled in the wind, wooden floors still sang beneath passing feet, but Hiroshi walked through these scenes with a calmness he had never known before. Master Akamoto, now gray with age, welcomed him as both student and equal, no longer defined by fear or ambition. Hiroshi was ready to guide others. And soon, a new student arrived, young, eager, trembling, just as Hiroshi once had. He handed the student a broom. Before you learn to swing a sword, Hiroshi said, learn to be present with this. The student looked confused. Hiroshi simply smiled. The circle had completed itself. The path of the samurai was alive again, not through battle, but through awareness. The sword had become a symbol, not of violence, but of clarity. And as Hiroshi stood beneath the rising sun, the whisper of a new truth formed within him. The greatest warrior is the one who no longer needs to fight. If this story has stayed with you, if something in Hiroshi's journey reflects your own battles, fears, or turning points, then stay with us. There are more lessons to share, more ancient wisdom to uncover, more echoes from the past to light the path forward. Before you go, take a moment to subscribe to the channel. It helps us continue creating stories like this, stories that remind us to breathe, to see, to live awake. And now a question for you. How many enemies do you face in your mind each day? And what would happen if you faced only the one in front of you? If you felt that, if it stirred something inside you, then this journey isn't over. It's just beginning. Subscribe, walk with presence, and we will see you in the next story.